What if the greatest rebellion in heaven did not begin with war, but with desire? What if angels who once stood before the throne of God abandoned eternity itself for the touch of human women? And what terrible judgment followed after their forbidden love gave birth to giants that nearly destroyed the world? Tonight, you are about to hear one of the darkest and most mysterious stories ever connected to the ancient world of the Bible. A story of beauty, temptation, corruption, and divine punishment. Because when heaven crossed the boundary God had set, creation itself began to collapse. Long before the flood of Noah covered the earth, the heavens were filled with order. Angels worshipped before God's throne, carrying out His will without question. They witnessed the birth of stars, the forming of oceans, and the creation of mankind. Their purpose was clear: serve the Creator forever. But everything changed the moment they looked down upon the daughters of men. The book of Genesis says, "The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." What began as curiosity slowly became obsession. These heavenly beings, created to dwell in holiness, became consumed by desires they were never meant to feel. Day after day they watched humanity from above. The more they looked, the weaker their resolve became. Human women possessed something unfamiliar to heaven: fragile beauty, emotion, passion, and mortality. To the angels it was intoxicating. Soon, whispers of rebellion spread among them. Some angels began questioning the order established by God Himself. What would it feel like to live among humans? To love as humans loved, to hold, to desire, to belong. Those thoughts grew darker with every passing moment. The glory they once carried began to fade as temptation filled their hearts. Meanwhile, on earth, strange changes could already be felt. There was tension in the air, as if creation itself sensed something terrible approaching. Many women began dreaming of shining beings descending from the heavens. Some felt drawn toward the unknown, unaware that powerful watchers from above had fixed their eyes upon them. Then the boundary between heaven and earth was broken. The fallen angels descended. They appeared glorious beyond imagination. Radiant faces, voices like music, eyes burning like stars. To humanity, they seemed divine. But behind their beauty hid rebellion against God, and the consequences would soon shake the entire world. Before we go deeper, ask yourself this: did the fallen angels truly love humanity, or were they only driven by rebellion against God? Comment your thoughts below, because this ancient mystery still divides people even today. Because from these forbidden unions came the Nephilim, giants of terrifying strength and corruption. Violence would spread across the earth, wickedness would multiply, and eventually heaven itself would answer with judgment. The flood was coming. The moment the fallen angels descended to earth, the world changed forever. They did not arrive like ordinary men. They came clothed in unnatural beauty, carrying the brilliance of heaven itself. Every movement seemed graceful beyond human understanding. Their voices were calm and powerful, like songs carried through the air. Wherever they appeared, people stopped and stared in silence. To human eyes, they looked glorious. Villages whispered about mysterious beings whose faces shone brighter than firelight. Women who encountered them felt overwhelmed by emotions they could not explain. It was more than attraction. It was fascination mixed with fear, wonder mixed with temptation. Genesis declares, "The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." At first, the women believed they had encountered something holy. These beings spoke with wisdom no earthly man possessed. They understood hidden things. They spoke of stars, kingdoms, and mysteries beyond human imagination. To many, they seemed like answers to dreams they never dared to speak aloud. But beneath that beauty, something was deeply wrong. The fallen angels no longer reflected the purity of heaven. Pride had already poisoned them. Desire had already conquered them. And though their appearance remained radiant, darkness was growing behind their eyes. The more time humans spent near them, the more everything began to change. Ordinary life no longer satisfied those drawn into their presence. Families became divided. Communities became restless. Human ambition began to rise alongside corruption. Scripture says, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." The influence of the fallen angels spread like fire. Ancient traditions say they revealed dangerous knowledge mankind was never prepared to carry. Ancient writings describe them teaching humanity's secrets of warfare, enchantments, vanity, weapon-making, astrology, and hidden arts that fed violence and pride. What once seemed beautiful slowly became destructive. Yet the rebellion continued growing. The fallen angels carefully chose women from among humanity, taking those they desired most. To these women, the angels appeared perfect, powerful, wise, immortal. But heaven had never intended for divine beings and mankind to unite in this way. Every forbidden union pushed creation further out of order. And then came the children. The offspring born from these unions were described as unlike ordinary humans, carrying extraordinary strength, enormous size, and overwhelming power. The ancient world would come to know them as the Nephilim. Their arrival marked the beginning of a terrifying age. Violence increased across the earth. Fear spread from city to city. Humanity was no longer moving toward God, but away from Him. What began as temptation was now becoming corruption on a global scale. The line between heaven and earth had been broken, and soon judgment would follow. Then came the beings that would terrify the ancient world, the Nephilim. These were not ordinary children. From the moment they were born, it became clear that something unnatural had entered the earth. They grew with frightening speed, towering over normal men like giants among insects. Ancient traditions described them as mighty men of renown, but their strength quickly became a curse upon humanity. Genesis records, there were giants in the earth in those days. The Nephilim possessed the power of their fallen fathers and the emotions of their human mothers, yet they lacked restraint, mercy, and wisdom. Their hunger could not be satisfied. Entire regions struggled to survive under their presence. Fear spread everywhere they walked. When they moved, the ground trembled beneath them. When they spoke, their voices echoed across valleys like thunder. Some were said to stand as tall as trees. Others became warriors whose violence turned the earth into chaos. Kingdoms could not resist them. Villages hid behind walls that offered no protection at all. And the corruption did not stop with physical power. The Nephilim became symbols of mankind's complete rebellion against God's order. Violence filled the earth. Pride consumed nations. Bloodshed became common. Scripture says, the earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Humanity was collapsing under the weight of wickedness. From heaven, God watched as His creation descended deeper into ruin. What had once been beautiful and good was now consumed by fear, corruption, and destruction. The fallen angels had crossed a boundary never meant to be crossed, and their offspring was spreading suffering across the world. Then came one of the most chilling declarations in Scripture. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The judgment of heaven was approaching. The archangels understood the danger growing on earth. Michael, Gabriel, and the heavenly host prepared for conflict against forces unlike anything creation had seen before. These were not ordinary enemies. The Nephilim carried supernatural strength in their bloodline, making them terrifying opponents even for mighty warriors. But the rebellion had already gone too far. The world itself had become poisoned by corruption. Humanity no longer feared God. Violence ruled the land. Ancient traditions describe heavenly battles, chaos spreading across nations, and fear gripping mankind as storms gathered over the earth. Then God revealed his answer. Not merely a battle, not merely punishment, a cleansing of the entire world. The flood would come. Before that judgment unfolds, if you are fascinated by hidden biblical mysteries, ancient prophecies, and the untold stories of Scripture, make sure to subscribe now so you never miss the next revelation. Ancient prophecies and the untold stories of Scripture. Make sure to subscribe now so you never miss the next revelation. Clouds darkened across the heavens. Thunder rolled over the mountains. Winds shook the earth itself. For the first time, the Nephilim, beings who once seemed unstoppable, began to understand fear, because no strength could stand against the judgment of God, and soon the waters would rise. Then the judgment of God began. At first the world did not understand what was happening. Dark clouds gathered across the heavens until daylight itself seemed to disappear. The sky became heavy and silent, as though creation was bracing for something terrible. And then the rain came. Not a normal storm, not a passing flood. The waters poured from the heavens without stopping, covering the earth with relentless force. Scripture declares, all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. Day after day the rain continued. Rivers overflowed. Valleys vanished beneath rising waters. Entire cities disappeared as the flood spread across the world. Fear gripped humanity as people realized there was nowhere left to run. Even the Nephilim, those mighty giants who once ruled through strength and terror, could not stop what was coming. For the first time, they faced something greater than themselves. They climbed mountains searching for safety, but the waters followed them higher. Their enormous strength became meaningless against the judgment of heaven. The earth that once trembled beneath their footsteps was now swallowing everything they had built. The fallen angels watched in horror. The world they had corrupted was collapsing before their eyes. Their rebellion had unleashed destruction upon humanity, and now judgment was washing it away. Ancient traditions described them bound and powerless, unable to save their children or reverse what had begun. Because when God's judgment moves, no earthly power can stand against it. In the middle of the chaos, one vessel remained untouched by destruction. Noah's Ark floated upon the waters. Inside were Noah, his family, and the living creatures God had preserved according to his command. While the storm raged across the earth, the ark carried the only surviving hope for mankind. Scripture says, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. Outside, the old world was disappearing. The flood-covered fields, forests, cities, and kingdoms. Even the highest mountains vanished beneath the endless sea. What humanity had spent generations building was erased in silence beneath the waters. The Nephilim disappeared with it. Those giants who once seemed unstoppable were swept away like dust before a storm. Their violence, pride, and corruption came to an end beneath the flood. The rebellion that had spread across the earth was being wiped clean. For 40 days and 40 nights, the waters continued to rise. Then at last, the rain stopped. When the flood finally began to recede, the earth no longer looked the same. The ancient world had vanished. The kingdoms of the Nephilim were gone. The corruption that had consumed humanity had been buried beneath the sea. A new beginning stood before mankind. But for the women who had loved the fallen angels, the judgment was far from over. An even darker fate was waiting for them. When the floodwaters finally withdrew, the earth was silent. The violence of the Nephilim was gone. Their cities had vanished beneath the sea. Humanity stood at the edge of a new beginning. To many, it seemed the judgment had ended. But for the women who had joined themselves to the fallen angels, the real punishment was only beginning. They had once walked beside beings who appeared glorious beyond imagination. They had loved creatures who carried the beauty of heaven while hiding rebellion in their hearts. Now those same angels were gone, cast down, estranged, separated from the world they had corrupted. Scripture speaks of angels who kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, and declares that God hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, unto the judgment of the great day. The women were left behind to face the consequences alone. Some were consumed by grief. Others wandered through the ruined world, carrying unbearable guilt. Everywhere they looked, they saw reminders of what had been lost. Drowned cities, broken families, and a world forever scarred by rebellion. For the first time, many understood the true cost of their choices. Ancient traditions tell of women who cried out for mercy, but found no peace within themselves. Their hearts were haunted by memories of the beings they once admired. What had once seemed beautiful now felt terrifying. The glory of the fallen angels had faded, revealing only ruin beneath it. But not all responded with sorrow. Some refused to admit any wrongdoing at all. Pride still ruled their hearts, even after judgment had fallen upon the earth. Instead of turning away from corruption, they clung to the same vanity and desire that had led them into darkness from the beginning. And because of that, their suffering deepened. Stories passed down through generations portrayed these women as symbols of temptation and sorrow, warning humanity about beauty corrupted by rebellion. Symbols of beauty corrupted by rebellion. Legends grew of voices calling from desolate places, luring others toward destruction, just as they themselves had once been drawn away. Whether literal or symbolic, the warning remained the same. Sin never destroys only one life. Its consequences spread far beyond the moment temptation begins. Meanwhile, the faithful angels continued watching over the restored world. The boundaries between heaven and earth would never again be treated lightly. The rebellion of the fallen angels had revealed how dangerous pride and unchecked desire could become. Humanity slowly rebuilt after the flood, but the memory of what happened never fully disappeared. The giants were gone. The flood had ended. Yet the scars of that ancient rebellion remained buried deep within human history. Because some doors once opened leave echoes that continue long after the judgment has passed. But even after the flood, one mystery remained hidden deep within the ancient world of heaven. A conflict so strange, so secret, that most people have never even heard about it. It involved two of the most powerful beings ever created, Michael, the chief archangel, and Lucifer, the fallen one who rebelled against God. And the center of their confrontation was not a throne, a kingdom, or an army. It was the body of Moses. Yes, the same Moses who stood before Pharaoh, the prophet who stretched out his staff over the Red Sea. The man, Scripture says, spoke with God, face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. After Moses died, something extraordinary happened behind the scenes of human history. The Bible gives only a brief glimpse into this mysterious event. In the book of Jude it says, "Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil he disputed about the body of Moses, durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee. One verse. Just one verse revealing a supernatural confrontation hidden from the eyes of mankind. Why did Lucifer want the body of Moses so badly? Why did Michael himself step forward to stop him? And what made this battle important enough to be preserved in ancient scripture for thousands of years? Some believe the enemy intended to corrupt the legacy of Moses. Others believe the body of the great prophet carried prophetic significance connected to God's future plans. Whatever the reason, this was no ordinary dispute. This was a direct confrontation between loyalty and rebellion, between heaven's defender and heaven's greatest traitor. And unlike the fallen angels before the flood, Michael did not act in pride or rage. Even in conflict, he submitted himself to the authority of God, declaring only, "The Lord rebuke thee." That moment revealed a powerful truth. The greatest strength in heaven was never rebellion, power, or fear. It was obedience to God. And what happened after this mysterious confrontation opens the door to even deeper secrets hidden within biblical history. If this story changed the way you see the ancient world of the Bible, share this video with someone who needs to hear these forgotten mysteries of heaven, judgment, and rebellion. The way you see the ancient world of the Bible. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these forgotten mysteries of heaven, judgment, and rebellion. Let us end with this prayer. Lord, help us never to be deceived by pride, temptation, or the false beauty that leads hearts away from you. By pride, temptation, or the false beauty that leads hearts away from you. Give us wisdom to recognize truth, strength to resist corruption, and faith to remain loyal, even when the world grows dark. Just as you preserved Noah through judgment, guide us through every storm and keep our hearts close to your light. Let us walk in obedience, humility, and reverence for your power, remembering that true strength comes only from you.